January 20th, 1945, 25,000 feet. I'm Tom Eason, Waist Gunner, 569th Squadron, 390th Bomb Group. They told us the fortress could defend itself. They were wrong until one unapproved trick changed everything. You don't die from bullets up here. You die when your elbow catches mine, when the ammo belt's not, when your oxygen line pops free and the world goes black. They said the fortress didn't need help. They hadn't stood where I stood, waist to waist, shoulder to shoulder, fighting each other before we ever fought the Luftwaffe. Story told by Staff Sergeant Thomas E. Eason, Waist Gunner, 569th Squadron, 390th Bomb Group. 3 feet. Move one window 3 feet and 1,000 boys make it home. I'll show you how we learned that the hard way. Before the cold, before the flak, there was a promise. They called it the Flying Fortress, a machine that could fly farther, hit harder, and fight its own battles. The general said, if you can reach the enemy's heart at noon, you can end a war before it begins. They believed numbers and altitude were enough. 4 engines, 13 guns, 10 men flying higher than the enemy could climb. A fortress in the sky, they said. And for a while, we believed them. The promise was power, but promises mean nothing until they meet flak and fire. Inside the fortress, you learned how small it really was. 10 feet across 2 men, 2 50s, 2 open doors. At 25,000 feet, the air was thin and mean 60 below zero, wind screaming 200 miles an hour. When the fighters came from the beam, we swung our guns and smashed into each other. The ammo belts tangled, the oxygen hose tore loose. I saw men freeze their fingers clearing Jam's bare skin on frozen steel. Some never came back, not because the Germans hit them, but because our own design did. Back in 42 and early 43, we were dying faster than anyone could replace us. Some said a fortress lasted 11 missions before it went down. Maybe true for those months, not for the whole war, but enough to fill the huts in East Anglia with empty bunks and folded flags. They trained us hard, but no training fixed the cold, or the chaos, or the space. It wasn't bad men, it was bad geometry. At altitude, the body slows, the mind fogs. You try to fight, and you fight the airplane itself. Command thought they had a fix. They called it the YB-40, turn a bomber into its own bodyguard. More guns, more armor, no bombs. A fortress that could fight for the others. She bristled with firepower. 2 waist guns, doubled up. A chin turret, 2 dorsal turrets, tail heavy with lead. But once the regular forts dropped their bombs, they were lighter, and we, the gunships, fell behind. The YB-40 could fight, sure, but it couldn't keep up. After the missions, the debrief rooms told the real story. Twin mounts at the waist made it worse, more firepower, less room. Crews wrote the same thing over and over. We're fighting the plane, not the Germans. Somewhere back home, the engineers started sketching a crazy idea. Move 1 window forward.
Yes, that gives us the clearance.
Give each gunner his own space. Not official, not approved, but they tried it anyway. They called it the Cheyenne package, though most folks meant the new tail turret. But that upgrade came with something else. The closed-in, staggered waist that finally let us fight without fighting each other. The next fortress I flew had that new window. Staggered. 3 feet forward on my side. For the first time, I could swing clean, no elbows, no tangled belts. Just air, and the target. The change wasn't glamorous. No new gun, no new armor. Just a window moved 3 feet and sealed in glass. But it meant I could finally do my job without fighting my own crew. By the time the G models rolled off the line, it was standard. Every fortress from then on carried that fix: the Cheyenne tail, the chin turret, and our staggered waist. Together, they turned the old target into a weapon that could finally fight back. By then, the fortress wasn't a single fix, it was a package. You gave us a chin up front, so fighters couldn't just come nose on. You widened our rear arc with the Cheyenne tail so the bastards couldn't hide behind us. And you gave us room to work in the middle staggered, sealed waist ports so 2 men could fight without killing each other. It wasn't magic. It was blood-paid data turned into iron and glass. Mod centers like Cheyenne and Tulsa didn't just tinker, they took stories from crews, ran trials, then forced the change into the factories. That's how 1,000 sketches and reports became thousands of safer planes. Production answered the lesson. By the time the G models flooded the sky, the fortress could return fire from every direction, and our chances of coming home rose with every roll off that line. We called it Big Week. 3,000 bombers over Germany, and for once, we weren't bleeding out. The escorts could finally reach us long-range Mustangs and Thunderbolts, tanks slung under their bellies. The G model's armor held, the new gun arcs bit back, and the Luftwaffe couldn't hit us like before. Then Doolittle changed everything. He told the fighter boys, "Don't stick to the bombers, go hunt." It sounded crazy, leave us alone in the flak, but it worked. The Luftwaffe burned its best pilots trying to stop us, and never recovered. By the summer of '44, we
Every
feared the
flight was a
flak
test
more
of
than the
endurance
fighters.
and resolve.
The Germans
A
still
journey
had
through a
guns,
sky
but
filled
not the
with
men to
peril.
fly. And every
Our
mission that brought us home proved what
meticulously
the brass had
maintained,
been saying.
flew
It wasn't
true
just the staggered
and
window
strong.
that saved us, it was everything. The G model, the long-range escorts, and a new way to fight. 3 feet of space, that's all it took. With our own window, we stopped bumping shoulders. With plexiglass sealed in, the wind didn't slice through us anymore. Our fingers stayed warm enough to fire, our oxygen stayed connected, and the guns, they finally tracked clean. And the idea spread fast. Late B-24s took the same staggered layout. Then came the B-29, no open ports at all. Remote turrets, pressurized cabins, gunners working behind armor and glass. We were watching the future being built, one small fix at a time. One fix led to another, from a frozen waste gunner in '43 to a pressurized fortress in '45. A few feet of aluminum changed everything for thousands of us. I flew with the 569th. Framlingham was home, cold mornings, cold coffee, colder goodbyes. Out there, above the clouds, everything else narrowed down to a few seconds. The beam, the flash, the swing. When fighters came in on the beam, they'd hit hard and quick. Back then, before the stagger, we'd grab, jam, curse, maybe lose oxygen, maybe lose a man. After the stagger, it was different. I could lock, sweep, change belts without smashing into the guy opposite me. We learned to move like a single system. He covers left, I cover right, we counted seconds instead of breaths. Those seconds were minutes of life. Enough to get past the IP, enough to make it over the North Sea. I finished 28 missions. We lost friends, that's the honest truth. But that staggered window, it gave us time. Time to breathe, time to fix a jam, time to make it home. A little change in metal, a little room to move. That's what kept men walking off an airplane and into the sunlight. That's what we took back with us. My 28th mission was my last. Flak tore through us, nose to tail. We lost an engine, then another. I remember the smell of burning paint and the silence after the guns went quiet. Some of us made it out, some didn't. You don't forget the faces or the sound of the ship breaking apart. But I learned something that day. Sometimes 3 feet of aluminum decides who gets to tell the story and who becomes just another name on that wall. People say only the G model had the staggered waist. Not true. Late F's got it first retrofitted right out of Cheyenne and Tulsa. The G's just made it standard. That's how we did it. We didn't wait for perfection, we built it on the line. And Cheyenne? That wasn't a nickname for the whole ship, it was the tail. Wider arc, better coverage. The rear package just happened to include our staggered waist and the new sealed panels. And the YB-40? Yeah, it looked mean twin mounts, 11,000 rounds. But once the bombers dropped weight, those gunships just couldn't keep up. We learned, adjusted, moved on. That's the American way. Today, fewer than 10 still fly. Maybe 50 left in any shape. But the lesson's the same. We win because we adapt. We see a flaw, we fix it. And we push that fix across every line, every factory, every field. That's how the fortress became bulletproof. Not from pride, but from change. The B-17G wasn't designed in a conference room. It was designed up there over Bremen, over Berlin, by boys who came home cold, burned, and bleeding, and still talked about how to fix it. Every mission was a blueprint. Every loss was a note on what to change next. That's how we built a better fortress, not from theory, but from survival. 3 feet of aluminum, that's all it was. But it gave men space to breathe, to fight, to live. Thousands of us made it home because someone, somewhere, dared to move a window 3 feet forward. That's not just engineering, that's adaptation, the kind that wins wars. The fortress taught us something bigger than victory. It showed us that no detail is too small, no idea too late when lives hang in the balance. We learned to listen to the men inside the fight and turn their pain into progress. That's how America flies. That's how we endure.